Welcome to my channel. Today we are traveling far back in time, to the very roots of French history, to the first major war France ever fought as a rising nation, and to the sacrifices, losses, and struggles that shaped the soul of the country. We know today when we talk about the First War of France, we must understand that France was not always the united country we see on the map today. In ancient times, the land we now call France was a place of tribes, warriors, forests, and mountains. These tribes were known collectively as the Gauls, powerful, proud, and fiercely independent people. But it was their encounter with one of the most unstoppable forces the world had ever seen that gave birth to the first massive war in French history. And that force was the Roman Empire. Today's story is about the Gallic Wars, the first great conflict fought on French soil. It's the first war that united the land, and the war that cost thousands of lives, changed cultures forever, and began the long journey toward the creation of France. So sit back, turn off the lights, and let's enter the world of ancient France, where the first blood of the nation was spilled, where its spirit was born. Our story begins in the 1st century BC, long before kings and castles, long before the French language existed, long before even the idea of France existed. At this time, Europe was dominated by the Roman Empire. Rome was expanding rapidly, swallowing territories one after another. And standing in Rome's path was the region we now call France, then known as Gaul. Gaul was not a single nation. It was a mosaic of tribes, each with its own leaders, armies, customs, and rivalries. But there was one thing the Gauls shared. They loved their freedom, and Rome wanted that freedom for itself. The Roman Senate, eager to expand, wanted Gaul under its control to secure resources, land, and power. To accomplish this mission, Rome sent one man who would become both legendary and feared, Julius Caesar. When Caesar entered Gaul in 58 BC, he claimed he was there only to protect Roman interests. But soon his true goal became clear here. He wanted to conquer Gaul completely. So began the first enormous war in French history, a war that lasted 8 brutal years. From 58 to 50 BC, the Gallic Wars were terrifying, bloody, and relentless. Caesar marched into Gaul with tens of thousands of trained legionary soldiers who followed discipline like religion. Soldiers who built roads, forts, and siege machines faster than most armies could react. The Gauls, brave but divided, tried to push the Romans back. Tribe after tribe fought against Caesar. Some tribes surrendered quickly. Others resisted with all their strength. And some were wiped out entirely. But among them all, one leader emerged, a man whose name still echoes in French memory, Vercingetorix. He was young, intelligent, charismatic, and a brilliant strategist. He understood something no other Gallic leader had truly understood before, that the Gauls could never defeat Rome unless they united completely. And so he did the impossible. He brought the tribes together. For the first time in history, Gaul stood as one. And this frightened Caesar like nothing else. Caesar wrote about Vercingetorix in his own journals, calling him a formidable enemy, and indeed he was. But this unity came at a terrible cost, for the Gauls to resist the powerful Roman machine. Vercingetorix ordered one strategy: scorched earth. The Gauls burned their own farms, destroyed their own villages, and ruined their own fields. Why? Because he wanted to deny the Romans food, shelter, and resources. Imagine the pain of a farmer seeing his life's work burned to ashes, not by invaders, but by his own people. Imagine families escaping their homes, knowing they might never return. This was the first enormous loss suffered on French soil: loss of land, homes, and identity. The great showdown of this first war came at a place that would become legendary, Alesia. It was here that Vercingetorix made his final stand. Alesia was a fortress atop a hill, surrounded by deep valleys and forests. Vercingetorix believed it was the perfect place to resist the Roman siege. But Caesar had other plans. He surrounded the entire hill with massive walls, trenches, traps, and fortifications. It was not just a siege, it was a cage. The siege of Alesia became one of the most tragic and defining moments in French history. Inside the fortress, food began to run out. Water became scarce. Families began to starve. Days turned into weeks. and hope slowly faded. The Gauls were waiting for reinforcements, thousands of warriors who were supposed to break the Roman lines from the outside. They did arrive. A massive Gallic army appeared, surrounding Caesar's forces from behind. The Romans were trapped between two armies, Vercingetorix inside and the Gallic reinforcements outside. It seemed like the Romans were finished.
Ow.
This was the moment when the future of Gaul, the future of France, hung by a thread. The Romans fought with terrifying discipline, using walls within walls, trenches within trenches, and formations that seemed almost supernatural. They resisted both sides at once. The battlefield around Alesia became a nightmare. According to ancient accounts, the land was covered with bodies. The cries of wounded soldiers echoed through the valleys, the sky filled with smoke. For the Gauls, it was the fight for their homeland, their freedom, their survival. For the Romans, it was the fight for glory, power, Caesar's ambition. But the reinforcements could not break through. After days of relentless fighting, they were forced to retreat. Inside the fortress, Vercingetorix realized the truth Gaul had lost. And so came one of the most heartbreaking scenes in French history. Vercingetorix, dressed in full armor, rode down the hill, dismounted, and placed his weapons at Caesar's feet, offered himself in exchange for the lives of his people. It was an act of courage and sacrifice, but it changed nothing. Caesar accepted his surrender, but he did not spare Gaul. The losses that followed were immense. Thousands of Gauls were killed in battle. Thousands more died from hunger and disease. During the siege, entire tribes were destroyed. Families were torn apart. Many survivors, including women and children, were sold as slaves. The cultural and emotional impact on the land that would one day become France was enormous. The Gauls lost not only their freedom, but also their traditions, their political structures, and their independence. Rome imposed its laws, its language, its roads, and its taxes. The very identity of ancient France shifted. But here's the powerful twist. Even though Gaul lost the war, something extraordinary happened in the centuries that followed. The people of Gaul did not break. They adapted. They evolved. They mixed their traditions with Roman culture. Their land became the heart of Western Europe. Their identity grew stronger. And eventually, out of this mixture of Roman and Gallic blood, the nation of France was born. So even though the First War of France ended in defeat, it became the foundation of something greater, a story of resilience, transformation, and rebirth. This war, painful as it was, shaped the spirit of the French people, the spirit that refuses to surrender, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The Gallic Wars were more than battles. They were the beginning of French history. They were the first chapter in a long, epic journey filled with conflicts, revolutions, triumphs, and sacrifices. And today, we remember the bravery of the Gauls, the leadership of Vercingetorix, and the price they paid for freedom. Their story still flows through the veins of France. Their loss became the foundation of a nation that would one day influence the entire world. So when we look back at this first war, we do not see just tragedy. We see the birth of a nation's identity. This was the first war of France, and the first lesson written in blood, courage, and unbroken spirit. Thank you for watching. If you want more powerful historical stories from France, let me know in the comments.